Hello viewers, welcome to Tradabulls. So finally today's close was 23,532 level, and this week Nifty was down by more than 2.5%. So 23,650 would be the 10% of the fall, and more than 10% fall is likely entered into correction mode. So usually up to 10% it would be under profit booking zone, and more than 10% to 20% area would be the correction mode. So officially Indian markets entered into correction mode, and 23,000 level is indicating a good support. And Bank Nifty closed at 50,180 mark, and this week Bank Nifty was almost all negative 2.7% fall, and IT it's somewhat okay, and this week almost all 0.81% up, whereas Fin Nifty was down by more than 2.5%. Majorly mid cap was down by around 3.5% this week, and Reliance almost all 1.25% down for this week. And as per trends, Nifty was, all three trends was into negative. So short term trend was into negative, and mid term trend also into negative, whereas long term trend is also into negative. So majorly because of Reliance, and other broader markets, other sectors also downward direction. So majorly Reliance almost all 22% down comparatively from the all-time high to today's close. And Nifty's all-time high was 26,277, and today's close was somewhere 23,530 level. So all the way from 26,200 level to this level, it's more than 10% fall, so which is under correction mode. And IT short-term trend is positive only, whereas mid-term trend was into negative only. But with today's candle or the weekly candles close, it's somewhat better comparatively other sectors. And Reliance, all three trends, short-term trend, mid-term trend and long-term trend, it's into negative. So Nifty, majorly Nifty and Bank Nifty was into bearish plus, whereas IT was closed with bullish plus, and the remaining Fin Nifty, mid cap and Reliance all are indicating towards downside. So comparatively major data points. So as per Fibonacci retracement and extension with long-term data, so Nifty has good support at 22,975 level, which is near to 23,000 level. So 22,975 was indicating at 123.6% of last year's range. So last year high was 21,800, and above 100%, the important level was 123.6 level, that is 22,975. So Nifty has a bigger support at 123.6% of last year's range, that is 22,975. And the last half year data from January to June, so 61.8% is the major trend line, that is also indicating at 23,013 level. And as per quarterly data also somewhere 22,983 is indicating minus 38.2%. So this level and this level and 22,975. So for all three time frames, quarterly, half yearly and yearly data is indicating clearly at 23,000 is the major support for Nifty. If it breaks, so we may expect some level, that is 21,853, 21,800 levels. So 21,800 was the last year's high. 2023's high was 21,800 level. But As per the major three time frames, longer period time frames are indicating a good support at 23,000 mark. So Bank Nifty, comparatively Nifty, Bank Nifty. So Bank Nifty, it's from all-time high to today's close was indicating about 7.5% down, whereas Nifty was indicated more than 10% down, and Reliance was more than 22% down from the all-time high. So banks this entire year was underperformed, and even fall also somewhere 7.5% negative side. So now today's close was about 50,000 mark. So the 100% of last year's range is indicating at 48,636 level. So Nifty may have good support at 48,636 level, which is last year's high. And as per half year's data, so 49,837 and 48,800 levels are 61.8 and 50% of last half year's range. Whereas 49,654 is indicating at last quarter's low. So last quarter low is also most important, that is 49,654. So from 49,500 to somewhere 48,636 levels are most important for Bank Nifty. So which may be about 10% from the all-time high level. So usually up to 10% it would be under profit booking, and minus 10% to 20%, minus 20% it would be under correction, and above minus 20% or above minus 20% it would be under trend reversals. So now Reliance is under trend reversals. So it's more than 22% fall happened from the all-time high. And IT, so today's close was good close, above 42,000 mark. Even last week also it was closed above 42,000 mark. And last week's high also it's less than today's close, this week's low. And here 161.8% of last year's range is indicating at 42,280 level. So today's close was 42,390. That means, so today's close was above that 161.8%. So the next probable numbers for IT would be 44,000, and as per weekly data also, which is indicating somewhere 43,000 to 44,000 levels. So today's sentiment wise, 30 out of 50 were closed on negative side and 20 out of 50 were closed on positive side. So majorly Reliance and HDFC Bank was the positive side contributors, whereas HUL, ITC, NTPC, Tata Motors were the downside contributors. So comparatively this week data, last 4 days data, 45 out of 50 were closed on negative side and 5 out of 50 were closed on positive side. So positive side, only Infosys was contributed greater than 25 points, whereas downside HDFC Bank, BEL, L&T, Asian Paint, M&M, SBI, NTPC, Reliance. So except HDFC Bank and Reliance, all were not that much heaviest counters, all are lightweight counters, but broader market this week majorly Nifty was impacted by broader market. So BL, L&T, Asian Paint, M&M, SBI, NTPC, all these are all less weighted stocks but huge points negative side contribution. So with this data, Nifty even the downside streak will continue even for next week also. So banks 6 out of 12 positive and another 6 were positive today. HDFC Bank upside and IndusInd Bank was downside. So this week data, so none of the counters were closed on positive side, whereas downside HDFC Bank, SBI, Kotak, Indus Bank, Axis Bank, Bank of Baroda, major downside contributors. And IT, so 6 out of 10 were closed on negative today and 4 out of 10 were closed on positive. Infosys, Wipro, HCL Tech, TCS were on downside, and Persistent Systems, Tech Mahindra and LTI Mindtree was on to positive side. So weekly data, majority are indicating towards positive side. 7 out of 10 were closed on positive side. So positive side, majorly Infosys contribution and HCL Tech, LTI maintained Coforge. So compared to index top 10s, so weekly data and monthly data for Nifty are indicating towards downside only. So this week, 8 out of 10 were closed on negative, and another, even monthly also, 8 out of 10 are closed on negative side. So except Infosys and TCS, all remaining 8 counters, heavyweights, are closed on negative side. So both weekly data and monthly data is also indicating further downside in upcoming weeks. So banks, 10 out of 10 for weekly data are indicating negative side, and monthly also 9 out of 10 are indicating towards downside. Even next week also, Bank Nifty may fall further downside. And IT, as per weekly data, 8 out of 10 were closed towards positive, whereas 9 out of 10 were closed towards positive for monthly data. So both weekly and monthly data are very much positive for IT, and both monthly and weekly data are indicating downside for Bank Nifty. So both banks and Nifty are indicating towards downside even upcoming weeks, whereas IT is indicating towards positive side. So heat maps. So this week the best performers were Trent, Eicher Motors, more than 2 to 2.5% up, whereas downside Britannia around 15% down for this week, Asian Paints around more than 10% down, and Apollo Hospitals, Adani Ports, Tata Consumers, Tata Steel, NTPC, Shriram Finance. So majority of the counters are from broader markets. So more than 5 to 10%, almost all 10 to 14 counters were towards downside closed. Whereas banks also, as per weekly data, so all were closed on negative side only. None of the banks closed towards positive side. And IT, this week it was majority of the counters closed towards positive side. Very few counters, 3 out of 10 were closed on negative side. Remaining 7 were closed on positive side. Whereas next 50, even as per weekly data, only 5 counters closed towards positive side, remaining 45 counters closed towards positive side. So even next 50 also indicating towards downside. And indices also, except IT, all were closed towards negative only. Next 50 this week lost by around 3.5%. Mid cap was around 3.5% down. Bank Nifty was around 2.7% down. Fin Nifty was around 2.7% down. Nifty is more than 2.5% down. So except IT, all major indices were closed towards downside. So comparatively, this previous range data, 44 out of 50 were closed towards negative, whereas only 5 counters closed towards positive side. So with this analysis also, Nifty is going towards downside even for upcoming weeks. Whereas monthly data, 40 out of 50 were closed downside, and only 4 out of 50 were closed towards positive side. So even indices also, weekly data is clearly indicating that only Nifty IT was closed towards positive side, remaining all are closed negative side. So only IT was closed above last week's high, whereas remaining all major indices closed below of last week's low. So with this data, so all major indices, so still further downside is indicating. So for next week and next to next week, 23,000 mark is very much important for Nifty. If it breaks that level, so still we may expect some further downside. So as per OI change, so today's Nifty's settlement was clearly indicated in between 23,500 to 23,550 mark. So this is live data. So based on the scientific data, so these values are displayed through Tradabulls application, so people can understand what would be the today's settlement, or where the exact support and where the exact resistance point. So since morning 23,600 was indicated clear-cut negative, clear-cut resistance for Nifty, whereas 23,500 would be the good support for the market. So since morning the data was clearly indicated that So today's settlement price would be in between 23,500 to 23,600 levels. Even as per box theory, so for Nifty, the important trends. So from 24,650, 22,800 would be the next trend support. Even from here to here also, this was the, so 26,560 down, 26,244 are the important trend reversal points. So exactly from there, market was fallen down, and 24,000, when it closes below 24,650, now this was the major resistance from the bigger trend point of view. Now 22,800 is indicating, so good support for Nifty. Whereas banks also, all-time high was around 54,400 mark. So from that level, so till it went 50,625. So today's close was below this trend line. So now the next important trend is indicating at 47,524. So Nifty may further fall towards 22,800 mark, whereas banks is indicating somewhere 47,500 marks. So that's all about today's analysis. We'll meet on Monday's analysis. Thank you. Thank you so much.